Welcome to a new episode of B-Movie Enema, the series. I'm Geoff Arbuckle, and that femme fatale over there is Nurse Disembaudee. Nurse, what's the occasion? You seem pretty gussied up for this episode.
Poopshoot told me what the movie was, and I thought it might be a good idea to dress the part.
Oh, is that right, Poopshoot? You already got the movie for me?
He thinks you might be pleasantly surprised by what's in store for this week.
Well, alright, let's see what you got. Huh. Okay, well, it's the second best secret agent in the whole wide world.
That's a heck of a long title for the movie.
Yeah, I suspect so, Poopshoot. Maybe you can get yourself some Pepto-Bismol and, kind of take it easy. Okay, so the second best secret agent in the whole wide world. Nurse.
What you got?
Can you guess who the best secret agent in the whole wide world would be?
Austin Powers.
Wait. No, try that again.
Nick Fury.
Not so much. Try again.
Maxwell Smart.
Definitely not.
Emma Peel.
Not really.
John Sneed. Napoleon Solo. Hamstray. Lemro?
It's James Bond.
I was getting there.
Huh. Anyway, this movie has another title, License to Kill, which is what this is translated into. The second best secret agent in the whole wide world was the American title. Now, we'll get back around to that in a bit, but it's a good thing that it no longer goes by License to Kill. At least in the vernacular of this episode, we won't be calling it by that. And I'll explain why in a moment and much more deeply later. Now, a couple of weeks back, we watched Devil Doll from 1964, and that was directed by Lindsay Shantef. Well, Mr. Shantef is back with this movie. The second best secret agent in the whole wide world, released 10 months later in 1965. However, it was not the direct follow-up to Devil Doll. The movie that came in between Devil Doll and the second best secret agent in the whole wide world was that Curse of Simba movie that I mentioned in the Devil Doll episode. It also went by Voodoo Blood Death and Curse of the Voodoo. I think it's very possible that the movie was not exactly sensitive to African folks.
That's probably a safe bet.
For sure. But another interesting connection with this movie comes from the U.S. distribution of the second best secret agent in the whole wide world. If you go back another week from the Devil Doll episode, we watched The Fourth Victim, which starred Carol Baker. Now, Baker's career was essentially derailed when she sued Joseph E. Levine over issues she had with her contract with Paramount Pictures. Levine was rather powerful, and it kind of blackballed her in Hollywood for a while, forcing her to go to Italy to pursue work. I bring this up again because Joseph E. Levine was the very shrewd importer of movies from overseas. He had a huge hit when he imported Godzilla from Japan, and he then imported the Steve Reeves Hercules film on the cheap, and he had another hit on his hands. So he did it again by purchasing the American distribution rights for this movie. I don't believe that what we're actually watching is entirely that edited American version. I think it's a hybrid of sorts, but I'll explain more in our next segment.
Let's get the movie started. I'm ready for some high-flying spy action.
Hey, I best do what the lady says, but we'll get the second best secret agent in the whole wide world started, and we'll be back here after the first act.
Morning, number 6.
Morning, number 10.
He's not the first, he's not the first, but he's the second best secret agent in the whole wide world. Not number one, but not the worst. He's just the second best secret agent in the whole wide world. He's every bit as good as what's his name, with a dame, any dame. And all those bullet holes are in his vest. To prove you work a little harder when you're second best, give him his due. He's number 2, right in there doing his act, despite the fact he shot clear through. Not the 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, or 1st when the challenge is hurled. But the second best secret agent in the whole wide blooming world. Not the 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, or 1st when the challenge is hurled. But the second best secret agent in the whole wide blooming world. That's my man.
Comrade Technikov, Professor August Jakobson was murdered. Shot dead 20 minutes ago.
That should slow down the grave negotiations with the British.
Mr. Pickering to see you, sir.
Ah, send him in.
Yes, sir.
You know why I'm here?
Regrave, I assume.
I want our new visitor protected. He's terrified after what happened to his brother on Hampstead Heath.
I can assure you, my dear Pickering, you have the best protection that our department can afford. If he's scared, that's good. It gives us a better chance of keeping him healthy.
I don't want any question of chance. Jacobson must live, at least until the formula is checked and working. I want your agents to hold his hand when he goes for a walk and tuck him in bed at night. I want 3 or 4 of your best men breathing down his neck, day and night.
3 or 4? You're joking. The Prime Minister only gets 2. But you chaps don't seem to realize what my department has to do. The Defense Estimate allocates more money to toilet rolls for troops than to my whole organization. I'll give you 1 man.
All right, 1 man, but he must be your best. Believe you me, the opposition is going to be tough. How about that boy who settled that gold conspiracy? What's his name? Bonds and Fetter or something?
I'm afraid he's otherwise engaged at present, but I got a good man for you. As a matter of fact, he came top of the class in weaponry and unarmed combat. He also got a first in maths at Oxford, so you should be able to talk to your professor.
To hell with Oxford. Is he experienced?
Nothing as big as this assignment before, but I'm quite sure he can handle it.
Wish I shared your confidence.
He's a clever old number, licensed to kill. I can assure you that the fellow is tough, discreet, and dedicated.
Dedicated to what?
Charles, I love the way you do it. So fast, so neat.
Wasteland, 4 letters across.
Oh, Charles, more. M-O-O-R.
Oh, yes, of course. Hello?
Is that Charles Vine?
Yes, of course it is.
This is Rockwell here.
Oh, good morning, sir.
Are you tied up at the moment?
No, I've nothing on at present.
Ah. Well, could you possibly drag yourself away from her?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Well, when would you like to see me?
As soon as possible.
I'll come round straight away.
Charles, it's not just physical with us, is it?
No, of course it's not. Whatever gave you that idea?
Good afternoon, Vine. I would like you to meet Walter Pickering of the Foreign Office.
How to do?
How do you do? Pickering has a job for you. He wants you to guard the life of a Swedish scientist named Henrik Jakobsen. We have a pretty shrewd idea that other interested parties are going to do their darndest to get his secrets. Failing that, they're going to try and get him.
Henrik Jakobsen. Now, isn't that Henrik and August Jakobsen? Didn't they do a famous double act in quantum physics?
They moved on from quantum physics some time ago. It's a single act as from yesterday. August Jakobsen was killed on Hampstead Heath. He's in our care, but unfortunately he's in no position to tell us much about regrav.
What's regrav?
After quantum physics, the Jakobsens moved on to an investigation of gravity. They worked on a revolutionary device to reverse the center of gravity. And they call the power that this device generates regrav. Now, on a low level, regrav could completely change our transport system. On a high level, it can give complete protection against nuclear attack. Rockets would be repelled from the regravitated field.
That sounds like a pretty valuable national asset.
Valuable enough for the other side to offer Jakobsen close on £1 million for the plans.
Tell me, where does Brother Henrik fit into the picture?
He's flying into London Airport tomorrow. He intends to pay his last respects to his brother and clinch the regrav deal with us. We intend likewise. Our rivals presumably intend otherwise. He's in your hands, Vine.
What time does his plane land? How do I recognize him?
There's your man.
Well, I couldn't mistake him. Who's she?
That's Julia Lindbergh, research assistant to Professor Jakobsen. Been with him about 2 years now. They're both arriving at the airport at 10:30 tomorrow morning. I want you to meet them there and take them to your hotel where a suite is reserved for them. In fact, it's adjoining your suite. Guard them night and day, Vine.
Well, gentlemen, I must be going. I have an appointment at the ministry at 3. Goodbye, Mr. Rockwell. Vine.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Well, I'd better be off too, sir.
Before you go, Vine, take off your coat. Where is your gun? Always trying to be different.
I got the idea from a television detective, sir.
You have some disgusting habits, Vine. We have a new gun for you.
Are you joking, sir?
No, I'm not. My department apparently went to great pains to perfect this novelty. It's a single shot kills at 10 yards. Use the one shot wisely. You'll have both guns. May come in useful sometime.
Gentlemen, thank you for attending at such short notice. The business we have to discuss today is of such an urgent nature that I think we can dispense with the minutes for the last meeting. However, I would like to express the thanks to the board, to Mr. Wilson's department, for the success of Operation Hit on Hampstead Heath.
Thank you, sir. I'll express your gratitude to my groups number 6 and 10, who did the actual field work.
Our meeting today is concerned with a related business. I give you Professor Henrik Jakobsen, Swedish scientist extraordinary and at present a virtually priceless commodity. He will arrive at London Airport tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. and will stay in London for 1 week. We want him as soon as possible. Are there any questions at this stage?
What sort of opposition can we expect?
I'm just coming to that, Roger. Gentlemen, Charles Vine.
What's Vine's background?
I'm afraid we don't know very much about him, but I think we can assume that he's capable, or otherwise he would not be employed in a mission of such importance. Now, gentlemen, you will kindly turn to page 5 in the prospectus in front of you. You will see that I have prepared a plan to capture this priceless professor.
Professor Jacobson.
Oh, yes. You must be Mr. Vine, the gentleman who's going to look after us.
That's right.
Well, I'm delighted to meet you.
How do you do? Allow me.
Oh, thank you. At a time like this, I feel I have to overcome gravity before gravity overcomes me. While apples were to Isaac Newton, suitcases are to Henrik Jacobson. Ah, this is my assistant, Miss Lindbergh.
Miss Lindbergh, it'll be a pleasure having you.
Having me where, Mr. Vine?
Your car's waiting, sir. I'll take you through customs.
Thank you.
Mr. Vine? That's right.
We have reliable information that an ambush has been prepared for you along the road. My instructions are to take you back to London by an alternative route. We'll lead the way. Will you follow?
Yes, Inspector.
Thank you.
And so you see, Mr. Vine, the really crucial part of our work was discovering the frequency of gravitational waves. But once we had discovered that, August and I began working on a monitor that would change the wave's frequency so that they repelled rather than attracted. You are a scientist, Mr. Vine?
Yes, in a way.
In which field?
I studied mathematics. Why?
I'm sorry, I assumed it was physiology. You seem to have an obsessive interest in anatomy.
I am interested in certain areas of the subject.
Hand over your gun, Mr. Vine. Keep your hands where we can see them. Your gun, please.
Morning, sir.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I had to sort out some pensions for the widows of our unfortunate employees.
That was a bad business on the London road, sir, wasn't it? I'm afraid Charles Vine proved too much of a match for our boys.
We mustn't lose heart, Wilson. Better luck next time. But I do think it's going to be rather dicey taking the professor prisoner.
How long have we got?
Well, we know that Jakobsen will be waiting 3 days until the final results on regrav. My new directions are to go for a direct kill. I want you to be the field commander of the new operation. We can't afford any more bungling.
You can depend on me, sir. Is that all?
I think so. Good morning, Wilson.
Good morning, sir.
And Wilson.
Yes, sir?
Never say die,
There are problems, comrades. There are problems.
Is that an admission of defeat?
I am only trying to be realistic.
Perhaps that might be a matter of opinion.
I must inform you, Comrade Technikov, that the Premier is displeased with the progress of this affair.
Comrades, it takes time. Negotiating the regrav blueprint needs tact and delicacy.
The Premier doesn't see things that way.
The Premier does not have to handle the situation.
Why haven't you made a direct approach to Jakobsen now that he's in London?
Did they tell you nothing of the situation over here?
No.
Well, then I think it's time that you two comrades made the acquaintance of a few facts. Jakobsen is the prisoner of the British Secret Service. Not only have they a jailer who guards him day and night, but with typical bourgeois cynicism, they even make attempts on his life. They are trying to convince him that they are protecting him against us. These British are absolutely ruthless. They kill many of their own men to strike fear into Jakobsen.
Fantastic. Such efficiency.
Now, Jakobsen's jailer is Charles Vine. Your department has details on him, I think. Now, my plan needs 2 specialists. A gynecologist for the operation and a Siamese for Vine.
They'll be in London tomorrow.
Excellent.
Comrade Technikov, you will have to bear the consequences of failure.
Are all the arrangements made?
All according to plan, miss. Leave everything to me.
Excuse me, Professor. We have some late mourners.
Allow me to introduce myself, Professor. My name is Pickering. This is Maltby. We are here on behalf of the British government.
I'm honored, gentlemen. On behalf of my dead brother. I'm sure August will be delighted to know that the British government is taking such an interest in his funeral.
We wondered if we could get down to the question of discussing regrav with you.
Perhaps you could talk more comfortably outside.
Oh, yes, of course, outside. Shall we, Professor? My dear Professor, you must realize the urgency of our business. In return for the blueprint, we can arrange to pay you £2 million this evening.
Believe me, after my brother's murder and my own experiences, no one is in a greater hurry than I. This evening is out of the question.
But why, Professor?
I'm 99% certain that my blueprint will work. But I've got to be 100% certain before I entrust it to anybody. In altering the direction of gravity, I'm dealing with infinitesimal entities. The slightest error in adjusting my gravity monitor could have disastrous consequences.
Yes, we understand that, Professor. Naturally, we would prefer to have the blueprint perfected. In the meantime, your work is so far advanced that I'm sure the British government can find competent scientists to confirm the blueprint for you.
I'm afraid not. I have some figures I want to feed to a computer. Then it will take 3 or 4 days to check and analyze the final results. I promise you the blueprint by Friday.
I don't want to be an alarmist, Professor, but just supposing that our enemies really succeed in their attempt on your life. Now, what happens to all your work then? 20 years of work for nothing.
Not at all. If anything should happen to me, I made arrangements with my bank in Switzerland to have a file of information sent to Julia. Oh, Miss Lindbergh, my assistant. We have trained her well. She will be able to help you.
With all due deference to the competence of Miss Lindbergh, if she can work from your notes, then why can't our British scientists do the same?
I'm afraid you won't shift him, gentlemen. Henrik's as stubborn as a mule as far as his work is concerned. If you knew him as I do, you would realize all you can do is to wait and be patient.
Now, if you will excuse me, I'd like to spend a little time that's left with my brother.
I'm sorry your visit seems to be such a waste of time, gentlemen. But you do have Friday as a firm date.
Well, we had hoped for more.
Perhaps we could at least settle the financial details now. It does seem an ideal opportunity. We want a cash transaction and immediate transport to the United States. These are our terms.
Very well. We accept. You will be in safe hands until Friday. It's been a pleasure to do business with you, Miss Lindbergh. Goodbye.
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 Oh.
Never mind, Dmitri. Just a little while longer and we'll all have a place in the sun. Gentlemen, I've been reading your reports. Everything seems to be going extremely well, and I want to impress upon you that we're working to a very tight schedule. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have this little get-together to straighten out any difficulties that remain. I understand that Miss Lindbergh has outlined the terms. £2 million in American dollars and transport to a place of refuge in the United States.
Yes, I have explained to the Home Secretary that Miss Lindbergh's terms on behalf of the Professor were most emphatic about having no banking transactions for obvious reasons. The Home Secretary has agreed to cash.
Any other troubles, Walter?
No, I don't think so. Thanks to the good work of your men, the British government is fully convinced that Technikov and co. are determined to get Jacobson. You've made them realize the urgency. They're positively eager to fork out the cash.
Splendid.
You know, Mr. Vine, this is fascinating. But to answer your previous question, you see, the basic principle of my gravity monitor is really quite simple. It absorbs gravitational waves and then amplifies them into bigger and ever bigger and bigger and bigger curves. You know, peaks and lows, until at their lowest dips, the waves fall below zero. And then we use a rectifier to cut out the oscillation above zero. What are we left with? Negative gravity. That's what we are left with, Mr. Vine. Negative gravity, working in reverse and providing enough power of lift to carry your British Houses of Parliament right up to the moon.
Well, that's a happy thought.
Your program is ready for testing now.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Well, let's get to work.
You, enjoying yourself?
I am. I have an aptitude for figures.
So have I. Tell me, what does this machine do?
It gives general information, depending on the questions it receives.
I see. Ask it for your telephone number, will you? How long will it take, Professor?
5 minutes.
No, I meant to check the entire set of calculations.
Couple of days. And there's nothing much I can do in the meantime. Oh, I say, Mr. Vine. Perhaps we could see the sights of London.
And why not? I still know a few places the police haven't closed down yet.
You mean we can still see Buckingham Palace and the Column of Nelson?
Well, I didn't exactly mean the Column of Nelson. Well, do you really want to see those places?
But yes, Mr. Vine. I never had the opportunity on previous visits.
All right.
All right, so wasn't that an exciting start to this movie?
Geoff, I think if this movie came out today, it could be very easy for that lady with the stroller to get canceled by online mobs of, I don't know, crazy people.
Do explain, nurse.
Well, she clearly is not a fan of people with crossed and or glass eyes. Her assassination of that guy is clearly something that would not stand for the folks on Twitter these days.
You haven't been to Twitter, or whatever it's called these days, in a while, have you?
Not especially. Why?
Yeah, I don't think too many people left on that platform would care about the sensitivity of old flabby guys with crossed and or glass eyes.
Oh, okay, so it's cool. Kill that son of a bitch!
Hey, that's the spirit. Okay, so we definitely have at least some of the American version of this movie based on two very key things. First, that assassination of August Jacobson was a cold open. That was not the case in the original British version. Second, the Sammy Davis Jr. theme song was one of the things that Joseph E. Levine commissioned for the American version to kind of be a cheeky wink at Bond-style openings and theme songs. But nurse, I get a little confused about something after this.
Are you actually asking me to help you with this, Doc?
I guess.
Well, let's get into it.
So, according to what I see about the American version of this movie, there were scenes removed between Francis DeWolf, who plays Walter Pickering, and John Arnott, who plays Rockwell, this movie's version of M, about trying to assign James Bond to the mission with the Jacobson guy and his regrab device.
Okay.
But there's a scene talking about, or at least mentioning, that they have to settle for the next best guy, this Charles Vine character. Because the guy who dealt with that gold thing was otherwise engaged.
Yeah?
Oh, and by the way, that gold thing is a direct reference to 1964's Goldfinger. Anyway, supposedly the American movie excised most of that stuff. So supposedly all this regrab stuff was also removed, which made the whole reason to keep Jacobson safe completely nonsensical. But there is that scene and more to come about what Jacobson's regrab thing is all about.
Well, maybe it's a hybrid version of the original British movie and the American release.
I mean, could be. All I see is 96 minutes for a runtime. This movie is 96 minutes. IMDb says 96 minutes. Wikipedia says 96 minutes. So it's 96 minutes, whatever that means. Anyway, nurse, what's regrab?
Regrab is a device that can eliminate gravity in a specific location.
Yep, it's as simple as that.
But different world powers want to obtain that by any means necessary.
And Britain is willing to pay a couple $1,000,000 for it.
Yeah, that's just about the gist of it.
Okie dokie. So Charles Vine, our titular second best secret agent in the whole wide world, is played by Tom Adams. Now, Adams was actually fairly young at the time this movie was released. He was only 27 years old. He appeared on some TV series and had a couple of uncredited roles in movies. However, 2 years before this movie's release, he appeared in The Great Escape, which starred some pretty big names like Steve McQueen, James Garner, Richard Attenborough, Charles Bronson, Donald Pleasance, James Coburn, and David McCallum. Granted, there were a lot of people in that movie, and you have to go pretty deep into the cast to find his name, but he's there. He worked pretty steadily for the next 40 years after The Great Escape, but he was never really a big star. In 1984, he did appear in the Doctor Who serial Warriors of the Deep, starring the 5th Doctor Peter Davison. And speaking of Doctor Who, he also appeared in one of the stories of the 1971 anthology film, The House That Dripped Blood. One of the other segments that Adams was not in starred John Pertwee, the 3rd Doctor, and my favorite of the Doctor Who versions. But anyway, people liked this Charles Vine enough to grant a reprisal of the role for Adams in a pair of movies. The first was 1966's Where Bullets Fly, and the second sequel that is known, kind of known, I guess, as Somebody's Stolen Our Russian Spy. Neither were directed by Lindsay Shantef, and only Where Bullets Fly features another character from this movie besides Charles Vine. Somebody's Stolen Our Russian Spy, the larger departure of the two sequels, was a British-Spanish co-production. Okay, well, because this movie is indeed 96 minutes, as I've said, I think we need to get back to it. Ready for some more rip-roaring British Eurospy action, Nurse?
Oh, you betcha, Geoff.
Then let's get to it.
Don't worry, Mr. Vine. I'm all right. Got myself a bulletproof vest in the lining of my overcoat.
Of course you have. Silly old me worrying my head off.
Wait, what's your name?
Charles Vine.
It's funny, I met someone like you in Florida.
Oh, really? Who was he?
James something.
Oh, what did he do?
Told me he was a vacuum cleaner salesman.
Now, isn't that a coincidence? So am I.
Come in.
Breakfast?
Thank you. You hungry?
Oh, Mr. Vine. Come in, come in.
Good morning, Professor.
Sit down.
Thank you.
How are you?
A little tired.
Go to bed.
I only just got up.
You're a strange man. You get out of bed and you say you're tired.
Yes. Where's Miss Lindbergh?
In her room, I suppose.
Would you rather I left you to work?
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Such bad manners. But I'm so close to my final results. It's beginning to fit together beautifully. The figures are running to their own conclusion, like the notes in a fugue by Bach. It's an exciting feeling. Each time you feel that you have discovered the secret of the universe.
With regrab, you may have done just that.
Regrab? Yes. Yes, I suppose it could change mankind a great deal. But for me, the excitement is almost over. You see, this is the part I really enjoy. The pattern of numbers in the mind. A dream to feast the imagination on before the practical man reduces it to reality. Why did you give up mathematics?
Why do you ask me that?
Well, present life is certainly eventful. But what satisfaction can it give you compared with the kind of thrill I'm talking about? The thrill of discovering new worlds in the mind, the beauty of the language of mathematical symbols, the naked simplicity of figures.
I still appreciate figures.
Oh, you are always joking, Mr. Vine.
Yes, I am. Well, I'll tell you why I gave up mathematics. It was beautiful having figures in my head, but the figures in my bank account remained unimpressive. And for me, those are the figures that really count.
You surprise me, Mr. Vine.
Do I? It's a basic question of economics. I like comfort, good living. In our kind of society, I can't afford to be a thinker.
That sounds very bitter, Mr. Vine.
Professor, you're a rare kind of thinker. One of the lucky ones who's hit the jackpot. Now, you can't tell me that the thought of £2 million in your pocket doesn't excite you.
Well, I must admit, it's a great comfort to me.
I am very pleased that you were able to visit me.
It's been very nice to see you again after so many years. Well, my dear Eric, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been extremely interesting.
It's been very nice to have you.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you soon again.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Doctor.
Goodbye.
Very gratifying to see the British government spending so much money on research.
On science, but not the scientists. Have you known Dr. Larson for long?
Long? We grew up together. He's a very old friend. It was good to see him.
What happened to Miss Lindbergh?
Well, she likes to stay at home sometimes. Wasn't necessary for her to come with me. My visit to Professor Larson was social, not professional.
Frightfully sorry. We'll be out of your way in a moment or two. Our radiator's boiled over.
Oh, bad luck.
Get out.
It's very clever.
Put the body in the car and take it off the road. Take them into the woods and kill them.
Can I have a cigarette?
I don't smoke. Thank you, Mr. Vine. You saved my life.
All right. Now, Professor, get down on the ground and stay still. Get down. Now, the odds are just about right. Get down.
Spread out and be careful.
Good day, sir. Would you like to sign the register? Reception? Right, yes. Bye.
Morning.
Good morning. Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Vine. What can I do for you?
Will you have my car sent round, please?
Very good, sir.
Any messages?
No.
Thank you.
Nun, da, Technikov. Шофировщик? Ёшлышки? О, шофировщик, да, спою. А, тошечки. Дай, очень оно, чайки, ешки. Чайки, спою, тошечки. Good news, comrades. That was our agent Sheehy on the Black Line. He has a reliable information that Jakobson has nearly completed his work on Rigrav.
Good news, Technikov. The professor's blueprint is about to be handed over to the British government, and you call that good news? You sometimes talk like a madman or a traitor.
Oh, don't alarm yourselves, comrades. That was only half the good news. I have established contact with Jakobson. The British will not get the blueprint they expect.
How could you contact Jakobson? I thought it was impossible to get near him.
It was. But for 2 months now, I have been conducting delicate negotiations with a high-ranking official of the British Foreign Office. He has access to Jakobson. He has explained to him the game the British are playing, and he has hinted that the British are responsible for the murder of his brother. So, after that, the professor did not need much persuading to agree to give a fake blueprint to the British and sell his Rigrav secrets to us.
Excellent, Comrade Technikov.
You see, I have not been wasting my time. Of course, the British official has cost me a lot of money. Perhaps you could persuade our Home Office to send me some expenses this week.
We shall need permission, of course, before we make payment. But in view of the urgency of the situation, I don't foresee any difficulties.
Well, Technikov, all we have to do now is to extract the professor from the tender clutches of Mr. Vine. No.
Thank you.
It works. There's complete correlation of my analysis. All my theories are vindicated. If only August could be here to share this moment. My friends, this marks the end of man's days as an earthbound world. We are free to soar like larks into the sky.
The Home Office has provided the money for Rigrav.
Our arrangements are almost complete. Soon, comrades, Rigrav will be ours. Nothing can stop our four-year plan.
And what if the professor should cheat us, as he cheated the British?
Hardly, comrade. If he cheats, he will lose far more than that.
Quite so.
Well, it's in your hands, Comrade Technikov. Good day.
Good day, comrades.
Good day. Comrade Technikov, don't get any ideas about setting yourself up as a capitalist.
Oh, it's our friends from the corridors of power. Come in, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Vine.
Good afternoon.
Ah, my dear Professor. The British government sends you its warmest congratulations. Now, the completion of your blueprint must have taken a great weight off your mind.
Quite a lot of weight of yours, too, I imagine.
We never really had any doubts, Professor Jacobson.
Now, if the blueprint and the other documents are ready.
Oh, yes, of course. Mr. Vine, please.
I cannot tell you how long I've waited for this moment.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Miss Lindbergh.
Good afternoon.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Vine. Here. Everything is here.
Excellent. And we have the settlement from the British government.
Okay.
The money, it's in cash. American dollars.
See for yourself, Miss Lindbergh.
Well, I shan't bother to count it. I take your word for it as an English gentleman.
And now, Mr. Vine tells us that you are leaving us tomorrow.
Yes, of course. Under the circumstances, I think the sooner the safer. Don't you think so, Mr. Pickering?
Well, before you go, perhaps a little festivity might be in order to celebrate your success.
You best ask Mr. Vine. He's my watchdog.
Maltby and I were thinking of going down to my house in Surrey. I can give you my assurance that your personal safety and that of Miss Lindbergh will be taken carefully into consideration. Now, what can I say?
That's an attractive idea. What do you say, Mr. Vine?
It's an attractive idea, Professor.
Good, then. You'll come. Shall we say 7 o'clock? Goodbye, Miss Lindbergh.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Professor.
Goodbye. Another suitcase to carry. Look at it. Hard to believe. £2 million.
That's 5,600,000 American dollars.
You should have stuck to science, Mr. Vine. By the way, how do you intend getting us and our ill-gotten gains to safety tomorrow?
We leave at 9:30 precisely for London Airport with a convoy of 4 cars containing armed guards.
You mean you're going to make a formal procession of this, Mr. Vine? I mean, isn't that going to attract some undesirable attention?
I hope so, Miss Lindbergh. I hope so. Now, just let me explain. Now, soon after we set out, we enter an underpass. Now, inside this underpass, our place in the convoy is going to be taken by an identical car containing 3 people dressed like us.
What happens to us?
Well, we change cars and wait in the underpass until the convoy has got underway. Then we turn round and make for London docks.
With only you to protect us, Mr. Vine?
What exactly do you mean by only me? No, Miss Lindbergh, as a matter of fact, we pick up a replacement armed escort near the underpass. Then we'll amble down to the docks and see you safely on board a small cargo ship, the SS Durham.
Is the ship safe?
Professor, it's been 20 years at sea. Never a leak.
He means the crew, Mr. Vine.
Oh, I see. Well, the captain is one of our most trusted men, and the crew won't even know who you are, so there's no need to worry. By the way, I wouldn't leave that lying around if I were you. It's a considerable temptation.
Would you see that this letter gets to Mr. Vladimir Sheehy?
Certainly, madam.
It's private. Very private.
Thank you very much, madam.
Excellent work, Sheehy. Excellent work. I don't know how you got this information, but it could be invaluable if Plan Volgograd runs into any hitches. It gives us a chance to rescue Jakobson as Vine takes him to the docks.
Any hero of the Order of Excellence could have done as much. You would expect an agent of my experience to find access to such things?
Quite so, comrade.
So the old underpass trick. The British Secret Service must be running out of ideas. Do they think they can frighten us with an armed convoy?
The armed convoy certainly frightens me, Comrade Technikov. Too much like a battle if we attack. Too much like a war if our attack succeeds.
Ow!
Can't you see the political repercussions could be highly dangerous?
It need never come to that. My plan Volgograd will whisk Jakobson from under the British noses. There need be no international incident. Only one man will die, Charles Vine.
We trust your plan works. Are arrangements for the execution complete?
They are. My British contact has arranged the celebration at his house in Surrey tonight. Vine and Jakobson will be there. Our first specialist, Sheehy here, is guaranteed entry to the house during the party. He will kill Vine according to plan. You are clear about the details, comrade?
Yes, it will be easy.
Good. As soon as you have dispatched Vine, then the way will be clear for our second specialist to take over operations. I think it is time we had him in.
Most certainly.
Send in Krupkin.
Comrades?
A very good Siamese. The perfect twin for the job. Our plastic surgeons get better and better.
Easy, Major. Do you know what you have to do this evening?
Yes, comrades, I do. I approach the house in Surrey and wait for a signal from Comrade Sheehy. This signal will be given from the window of Vine's bedroom, the second from the left on the second floor. Then I will ascend to this bedroom, put on the clothes of the dead man, and rejoin the party on his behalf.
Comrades, from 11 p.m. tonight, Professor Jakobson will be in the care of a new Charles Vine, our personal representative. He will bring the professor and Miss Lindbergh directly here.
Major Krupkin. You have studied your part well.
Yes, comrade. I have studied for 5 years at the Pantorg Academy.
Let's hear you.
Good evening. I don't believe we've been introduced. My name is Charles Vine. Tell me, do you make a habit of being the loveliest woman in the room?
Alright, so since this movie is a touch over 90 minutes, we will speed run through this break, but I wanted to make sure to mention a few of the people who make up the supporting cast of the movie. We start with perhaps the most important supporting character, Heinrich Jakobson. He's played by Karl Stepanek. Now, Stepanek was a Czech actor who was born in 1899 in what is now the Czech Republic, and was back then called the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Now, for the most part, I would assume that Stepanek got a lot of work in the 40s and 50s playing Nazis and Soviets. However, while this is probably his best known role, he also appeared in Shantev's Devil Doll as Dr. Heller. Stepanek's final role was an uncredited one in 1971's Been Down So Long It Looks Like Up to Me. And he would later die at the age of 81 in 1980. Next, we have his assistant, Julia, played by Veronica Hurst. Now, Hurst at this time was at the tail end of her marriage to William Sylvester, who appeared in Shantev's Devil Doll as our hero Mark. This was the second to last film appearance for Hurst. 1 year later, she appeared in The Boy Cried Murder, and then spent the remainder of her career on TV, which ended when she appeared in 14 episodes of the soap opera General Hospital between 1973 and 1975. She was in a bunch of fairly standard crime and action thrillers of the 50s. However, perhaps the movie that gets the most discussion to this day is one she has an uncredited bit part in. 1960's Peeping Tom, a psychological thriller about a man who murders women and uses a camera to capture their terror as they die. Hearst lived until 2022 when she passed away just after her 91st birthday. Charles Vine's boss Rockwell was played by John Arnott. While he would reprise the role a year later in Where the Bullets Fly, Arnott's most recognizable role was as the deputy sheriff of Nottingham in the British television series The Adventures of Robin Hood. He worked right up to his death in 1999. Pickering is played by Francis DeWolf, a character actor with 42 years worth of credits. He also appeared in Devil Doll for Shantef. He was Vavra in From Russia with Love. That makes him somebody who actually was in a Bond film, and in this movie too. He also appeared in Hammer films such as Corridors of Blood, The Hound of the Baskervilles, alongside Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, and Curse of the Werewolf. That Curse of the Werewolf and Corridors of Blood had Yvonne Romaine, who was in Devil Doll. Next, we have a couple of baddies. First up, Peter Bull, who plays Masterman. For nearly 50 years, Bull worked and had some massive films on his resume. These are movies like being the narrator for the 1951 version of Scrooge. He was the enemy boat captain in The African Queen opposite Bogart and Hepburn. He was the Soviet ambassador in Dr. Strangelove. He was in the 1963 Best Picture Oscar winner Tom Jones. But let's forget about all those recognizable movies he appeared in. Peter Bull is a fascinating character for two reasons. First, in the 70s, he ran a little shop that sold Zodiac-related things. So he was into astrology, or at least the aesthetics of it. But he was also an avid collector of teddy bears. Yeah, he loved the little guys. I get it, man. You find something that speaks to you and you just collect that shit. But he was such a big fan of the stuffed cuties. He wrote a book about teddy bears. Yeah, he was also an author of lighthearted stuff like his teddies and the adventures he'd go on in the Greek Isles, where he also had a house. He is maybe the most interesting person in this cast. Another of the baddies, Technikov, is played by Felix Felton. He was nearing the end of his life, but he had some notable stuff on his filmography, which includes Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, a movie based on a book by James Bond creator Ian Fleming. He also, he didn't really quite have a very long career in film and television, only about 20 or so years, but he did, in that time, rack up over 80 credits. Of course, like so many British actors, he was involved in a version of Dickens' A Christmas Carol. In 1971, the same year in which he passed, he did voice work for the animated TV special of the classic tale and voiced the Ghost of Christmas Present. I believe that was one of the versions of the tale I saw in school just before Christmas break when I was a kid. But let's talk about a couple more beauties we see in this movie. When we first meet Charles Vine, he's having some naughty fun in bed with a girl who, again, I thought a lot of the double entendre dialogue with Vaughn was supposedly removed in the American version, but I picked up on what they were putting down there. But again, I don't know what version of this movie we're actually watching. But she's played by Carol Blake. She was in no other film or made any other TV appearance that I could find. However, at the end of the first segment, we saw a girl who works in the computer department of whatever agency Vine is a member of. And we saw her again when Vine successfully shagged her. She is Judy Huxtable. Huxtable was born into a wealthy family and spent her early years as a debutante before becoming a fashion model in her early adult years. That allowed for her to get a few movie roles. Not many, but she did appear in a couple of recognizable horror films like Scream and Scream Again, starring Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing. She also appeared in Die Screaming Marianne. She ended up appearing in 17 movies over a span of nearly 20 years. At the end of the movie, we will see actress and comedian Claire Gordon. Probably her highest profile film and best known role, at least on her filmography, is 1961's Conga, in which she starred as Sandra Banks. She did do some work on stage, which included a role in Agatha Christie's Verdict, as a Russian spy. She also appeared in the Neil Simon play Come Blow Your Horn. When Gordon passed in 2015, there was a bit of a controversy around her estate. 2 people acting as property consultants were arrested and put on trial for fraud because they altered her will. Kind of crazy, if you ask me.
All right, Geoff, I'm back. What did I miss?
Well, pretty much the entire segment.
Oh, bummer. Did you talk about the guy who was in an actual James Bond film?
Yep.
How about the guy who wrote books about teddy bears?
Of course.
Oh, well, I guess it's time to get back to the movie.
Sure is.
Ah, Mr. Vine. Lots of pretty girls here, huh?
Yes, there are.
Oh, excuse me, please.
Certainly, Professor. Well, you enjoying the party?
Yes, thank you.
How's the cigar?
Splendid.
The girl wasn't invited. She's a friend of Lord Isleworth. Lovely, isn't she?
Yes. Yes, she is.
She hasn't been security checked. Maybe you'd better keep an eye on her.
Wait a minute. Now, will you give this note to that gentleman and tell him it's from the blonde lady, the healthy one?
Well, I don't know about that, sir.
Oh, I think you do.
Excuse me, sir. There's a note from the lady. Excuse me.
Good evening. We haven't been introduced. My name is Charles Vine. Tell me, do you make a habit of being the most beautiful woman in the room?
May I have another drink, please?
man.
Yes, Mr. Vine.
3 more minutes and this could have been very embarrassing for both of us. I knew you looked familiar. You're the strange little man from the hotel lobby, aren't you? Mr. Sheehy.
Right again.
That's very appropriate. Tell me, the female voice?
They train us well. Now it is time to die, Mr. Vine.
I don't think so.
I cannot understand what has gone wrong.
You underestimated your opponent. That's what went wrong.
One of our best agents is dead, and there's only one morning left.
We shall make it clear, Technikov, that it was your planning that failed.
Then we must attack the docks convoy. We have the men at the embassy specially trained to do this.
It will cause an international incident. The risk is too great.
Then what in the name of the revolution, what else are we going to do?
Comrades, now if I may be permitted a few observations. I believe this situation is not as hopeless as it seems.
Oh, yes, Major. Pray go on. Tell us how the British will cheer to see gun battles in the streets, how they will applaud on the sidelines if the fighting is fair.
Comrade Technikov, I may not share your knowledge of politics, but I do know my opponent, Charles Vine. Comrades, I am confident he will have no escort to the docks.
But our report explicitly states that he will have an escort.
Comrade, no. Now look at it from his point of view. He arranged an escort to the airport because he wanted to attract our attention. Now why should he risk attracting unwanted attention by taking another escort to the docks? He would be far safer on his own.
How safer? Mr. Vine on his own will stand much less chance than Mr. Vine with a well-armed escort.
Agreed, Comrade Technikov. But please try to remember he does not know that we know the details of his plans. Besides, comrades, I know this man. He is a gambler. And I'm certain he will gamble on slipping away from this underpass as inconspicuously as possible. Any kind of escort would give the game away. He will not risk it. It would be just like this Vine to favor a death or glory effort on his own. Now, with your permission, comrades, I will make sure that it's Vine's death and our glory.
How do you propose to do that?
I shall need one of Comrade Technikov's best marksmen. Otherwise, comrades, trust my judgment. And I will bring you the blueprint and Professor Jakobsen by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
It may be our only chance. Very well, Major. You have our permission.
Thank you, comrade. I have just one other question.
Yes, Major?
Suppose Professor Jakobsen decides against joining us after all.
Well, it is highly improbable. But if you like, you can take the money with you. Cash is a great speeder-up of conversions to our cause. Yes, Major, if you care to come with me, I will give you the dollars now. Excuse me, comrades.
Are you satisfied with Krupkin's plan?
Not entirely. Most of all, I have doubts about the integrity of Comrade Technikov.
Is it a case for Sadistikov?
He could at least observe the situation.
If Krupkin's plan goes amiss, he could take care of this man Vine. Sadistikov never fails, and he loves killing.
Where is he now?
He has taken a small job of his own choosing while he keeps an eye on the TSR-2.
What sort of a job has he taken?
Supervisor in a slaughterhouse. He loves killing.
Nothing yet.
Possibly Vine's plan was a phony. The ship could be a decoy. He's probably gone all the way to the airport with the escort.
I don't think so. We'll wait.
All right.
Don't be alarmed. I have the money.
Hello. Feeling better?
You look just like a bloody bridesmaid. Now, do you mind telling me what's going on here?
All in good time. How are they treating you?
Oh, very well. Apart from those two fellows who've been staring at me for the past hour. I mean, is there any particular reason?
Maybe. We'll see. Thank you. I'm sorry about all this, Vine. We had to make sure. This is the doctor's report. She says she'll stake her reputation that you are the right man.
Oh, that's very kind of her.
Now, don't be bitter. Look what I brought you. Tell me, how much do you remember of the scene of the carnage?
Quite a lot.
Good. When we arrived there, we found two Charles Vines, one of them dead. We weren't sure which one we got, hence the precautionary measures.
Now I understand. I thought they were going to pinch me for knocking down that helicopter. Oh, by the way, sir, it was fantastic shooting.
Yes, quite good. Do you know who was in that helicopter?
No. Go on, surprise me.
August Jacobson, the dead man from Hampstead Heath. I should say the man we presumed was dead.
I am surprised. Well, what happened to the regraph blueprint and the money we gave Henrik Jacobson?
Sad to say, regraph doesn't work. The blueprints are fake.
Oh. You tell me the whole story, slowly.
Well, briefly, what seems to have happened was this. The brothers August and Hendrik ran into a brick wall in their work on regraph. They'd spent 20 years in research and were determined to get something in return. August seems to have had the business sense to realize that good advertising sells a poor product. He decided that very good advertising would sell a product that didn't exist at all.
Such as regraph?
Right. Now, he put pressure on us and on the opposition by convincing each of us that the other was desperate to get his hands on the blueprint. Desperate enough to kill both brothers rather than let the opposition get it. Now, the idea was to persuade both of us that the situation was sufficiently urgent to justify paying out cash before checking whether regraph would work. So, we had the apparent murder of August and the repeated attempts on Hendrik's life.
Dummy attempts?
We don't know. Hendrik certainly thought so. But August may have decided to kill him quite early on and conduct the rest of the business through Julia.
How did they fake August Jacobson's death and the attacks on Henrik?
They had to buy help, of course. You remember our friend Pickering? He seems to have been involved in the conspiracy right up to his luxuriant eyebrows. He's in jail right now.
I never did like Pickering. Did he organize the attempts to kill me?
No. Well, that part of the organization was run by a man named Masterman. You must meet him. He's a gem. He hired a splendid assortment of layabouts and lunatics to go out and get themselves killed by you.
So I wasn't fighting our usual opposition. Just a bunch of homegrown criminals.
Yes, I'm afraid that's true for most of the time.
Well, if you knew this, why didn't you let me know?
Oh, but I didn't know. I'm not at the time. It wasn't until you made your fateful journey to the docks that we got an anonymous phone call, probably from Brother August, telling us where we could pick up Pickering and Masterman and suggesting a few questions we might like to ask them. They spill the proverbial beans sufficiently for me to put the picture together.
I see.
Mind you, we began to have our suspicions about this affair when we examined the people you killed. I mean, most of them were hardly the type we've come to expect from the opposition. Didn't you have any suspicions yourself?
Well, I don't know about suspicions. A feeling of unease, certainly. I decided to play along.
I decided to let you, to see where it would lead.
Well, that was very clever of both of us. Now we know where it led. To the hospital. By the way, sir, you don't happen to have your flask of brandy with you, do you?
Just drink up your milk.
Time for your sleeping pill, Mr. Vine.
Look after yourself, Vine. Get him on his feet soon. I have work for him.
Geoff, you look grumpy. Are you grumpy?
Yes, I'm grumpy.
Oh, Well, why?
This movie sucked.
Oh. Oh no.
Yeah, this movie is pretty bad. I mean, Poop Shoot said this might be a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, watch out, PC. You might catch some of that grump from Geoff.
Would have been more pleasant surprise if this movie didn't fly through the poop chute. Look, I don't like flexing these muscles too often, but here goes. I've mentioned before that I'm a huge James Bond fan. Okay? Some of my friends, and trust me, I do have friends, sometimes. Anyway, those friends will tend to try to foist the term expert onto me. I am not a James Bond expert. I like to consider myself a James Bond enthusiast. Now, I know a lot of things. My opinions of the things in the series tend to come from a sincere place of how I feel about each entry in the series, and I know the traditions or things that the producers were utilizing or replicating from a previous film in the franchise. So, understand this is coming from a sincere place.
I'm pretty sure you're not going to like my final grade, but hit me with it.
So let's compare this movie, originally titled License to Kill, to the 1989 James Bond film License to Kill. This film does not have a bad premise whatsoever. In fact, I like the craziness of a scientist having created an anti-gravity machine that could be a very useful tool for a world power to have as it jockeys for world supremacy, during the Cold War. Okay, I'm with you on that. Trust me, I'm with you. I like that idea. And I like the idea of our hero spy being brought in not to go and steal the machine or the blueprints or the person who made it to bring him back to England, but to simply protect him. The Bond series is full of entries in which Bond is not sent to assassinate someone or steal something like you think a spy would. No, he's simply sent to gather information. It's not until someone strikes at him that he has to use his license to kill or make other on-the-spot decisions to take down the criminal mastermind. And yes, there are a couple of entries in which Bond is initially sent out to watch, observe, and protect, not necessarily get directly involved as to protect Her Majesty's interests.
I'm following.
Good. Now, in this movie, Charles Vine is sent out to make contact with Heinrich Jakobsen. He is then to help protect him and his regrav device, along with his personal assistant, the lovely Julia Lindbergh. Now, he facilitates safe passage for Jakobsen so that the British government can purchase his regrav device. Okay, this is all perfectly understood. But in the course of the plot, Jakobsen is hunted by the bad guys led by Masterman. And Masterman apparently has moles and bad guys everywhere. Sometimes they are members of the police or the military, and sometimes they're cross-dressing Asian lady boys.
Don't forget Masterman has that exact duplicate for Vine, too.
Oh, we'll get to that, don't you worry. But so, to compare to 1989's License to Kill, you have Bond, who granted is not working for the British government. Instead, he goes rogue to take out revenge on Sanchez, a powerful head of a cartel that severely hurt Bond's only real friend, Felix Leiter, and killed Felix's wife, Della, on the night of their wedding. This triggers painful memories of Bond's own wedding day, in which the only woman he truly loved up to that point was also slain. So Bond takes off to deal with Sanchez, but when you have a powerful drug cartel led, who uses his money and tries to set up his country's primary bank and lavish casino, and you can buy the president of the country as well as the military might at the control of El Presidente. This means that Bond is naturally going to run into people who are seemingly normal at first, but are either in Sanchez's pocket or part of a whole other ring of international spies who are working together to gain Sanchez's trust and then bring him down with the full might of their country standing behind them. The plot of License to Kill is about Bond working alone and without his gadgets for most of the movie and needing to use his cunning to worm his way into Sanchez's circle and sow mistrust and paranoia within the organization. Every scene has Bond working toward that goal and sometimes making huge strides in that goal and sometimes suffering setbacks and needing to change his plan. Sometimes on the spot. But this movie is a collection of scenes that are like watching kids play on the playground and making up the rules as they go. Multiple times over, we see Charles Vine run into bad guys while escorting Jakobsen and Julia to some place. It's also obviously traps too where he's going. I mean, we don't ever really know if the people dressed as police or army are turncoats being paid by Masterman to kill Vine and Jakobsen, or if they were just wolves in sheep's clothing. Vine agrees to take Jakobsen to a freaking parade where he loses the scientist for a little bit until he realizes the scientist is wearing a bulletproof vest. I mean, he had to ponder whether or not he fucked up on a colossal scale, and we have to wonder if Vine is a fucking moron. However, Vine did fuck up colossally because he should be holding things down with Jakobsen and in no way taking him to a goddamn parade. And it makes the movie repetitive, and worse, it makes the movie extremely dry. There's hardly any variety in the action sets. Every action scene deals with a car and shooting as if that's all Bond films were, and yes, this movie wants to be a Bond movie on every level. Twists in this movie don't make any sense. We're shown that Masterman's best, man, is an exact duplicate, thanks to plastic surgery, of Vine. He doesn't do much. He sits outside and waits for the ladyboy to do something? Anything? I don't know. But that doesn't do anything because Vine kills the guy before the duplicate Vine can make contact anyway. And in the big climax, the duplicate is just shot. Yeah, he doesn't really face off against Vine himself, probably because the movie couldn't figure out how to have two Tom Adamses in the same scene. Instead, Vine takes on a guy we don't really see in action until the very end of the movie. And he just shows up at the end and Vine has to kill him. Betrayals make no sense. Jakobsen gets his big payday and then decides to kill Julia and then goes to meet up with his brother who was supposedly dead thanks to that assassination scene that kicked the whole movie off. And I guess all those people who worked for Masterman when that whole opening scene happened suck at their jobs because they didn't kill the guy, I guess. I don't know. Oh, and get this. Vine wakes up in the hospital to find out that his boss and other agents have cleaned up the final details. This also includes that Pickering was a turncoat the whole time too. But the worst of those final details? Regrav never worked anyway. It was all bullshit. I guess the movie's real villain in the end was money? The movie itself? I don't know. The money was what Jakobsen and his brother were after all along. It's just, it all sucks. This movie sucks.
Oh, well, I see your points. Admittedly, I found myself too often trying to compare this movie to James Bond or Austin Powers, or at least I wanted to do that. Obviously, yeah, it wants to be James Bond. It isn't, and you're right about that. I wonder if this movie would have been better if it was more like Austin Powers? Anyway, the music was a little weak, but I did like that Sammy Davis Jr. song at the beginning. But you're right, Geoff. The plot was starting to get dry. There wasn't enough really good and unique action scenes. Still, I didn't get as mad with it as you did. I guess it's easy to get frustrated with a James Bond ripoff that kinda gets too dry and too silly without much humor or sexy stuff. I guess I'll give this a generous 3 poops out of 5.
3 poops? Oh, God. That's generous. Now, I think we've gone as far as we can with the second best secret agent in the whole wide world. Wait a minute. If Vine is the second best secret agent and Bond is obviously the first best, then that drop-off between number 1 and number 2 is quite steep. And, all of this makes me want to say...
And now for the joke everyone has been waiting for all episode. Here's the wind-up and the pitch.
Charles Vine really is a number 2.